and welcome to this special edition of KiniTalk. My name is Sumisha Naidu, and today we'll be talking about the future of Barisan Nasional post GE-13. Today we're joined by Umno member and Pulai MP Dr Jazlan, Mr Madhu Marimuthu, the Deputy of the MIC Strategic Committee, and Senator Gan Ping Sieu, MCA Vice President. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Hello.
Alright, so guys, let's get to it. First of all, what did you think of the results of GE-13? Did it meet your expectations?
You go first. You go first.
Well, as far as MC is concerned, and this is possibly the most serious electoral defeat that we have ever experienced, and hence we abide by our own resolution, party assembly's resolution, not to enter the cabinet and not to hold on any executive post in the government, and that of course represents something really new for the party, and the incumbent, the current president, has indicated that he will step down and hand over to new leadership, and we are expecting for the next few months the party elections will take its own place. And in the meantime, because the election process takes about half a year, in the meantime the party has set up a reform committee, and under the deputy president, Dr Zulkifli, and former committees to relook into MCA's future roadmap and direction.
All right, and let's just talk about that for a bit. How is this going to work with no MC representatives in government? How do you foresee MCA's relevance moving forward?
I would say, Misha, it will look very strange for a political party to be part of the ruling party of the government, and you choose not to be in the government. But that has been the decisions that we've made, endorsed twice by the General Assembly of the parties, central delegates. So maybe the time, or we have to follow that, otherwise we'll be suffering from credibility problem. But the point is, maybe after the new leadership is formed, we probably have to relook into all this. But to do so, to me, I feel that the MCA has to re-articulate our politics. You see, we have been seen to be a party, communal party, ethnic-based, and of course ethnic-based party has been shunned upon by the younger generation. We have to seriously look into this, whether we are going to open up. And secondly, we have been seen to be focusing a lot of time in arguing over communal issues. In fact, our political politics is a lot more than that. As for example, health ministry. We have probably one of the best healthcare service in the world, most affordable, and that is under MCA's ministers for 20-30 years, and we should take credit of that. We don't say a part of government, and we should collectively take credit of that. Housing policy, we're probably having one of the best housing policies in the world, where affordable housing, low-cost housing are afford where people can actually afford a roof over their head. And these are the things that we do not articulate. We tend to focus on a lot of communal issues, and by and large it's over schools, the inadequate teachers, and maybe some scholarship issues, and maybe a couple of churches and temples issues about planning issues. And all these are very, very basic and very communal issues. In fact, there are not that many, other than educations and maybe some religious issues. The rest are all national issues. But IMC has failed, to me, fails to articulate our politics well over the years, so that we are seen to be a party focusing on communal issues and while overlooked the rest of the national issues. In fact, the communal issues are very limited. But having said that, we are still seen not to be very effective in dealing with communal issues, and therefore we suffer the electoral defeat. There are reasons for that. Okay,
now we'll come back to that. Dr. Jazlan, I understand yesterday you said you were at a forum at the Foreign Correspondents Club, and you talked about how the swing of Chinese votes was particularly an MCA problem. Now, could you elaborate on that and explain too?
That's why I asked Dr. Gan to start first, because MCA was a big issue in the election. The Pakatan Rakyat used MCA as a punching bag. And MCA is a part of Barisan Nasional. And when we go into elections, we go under one symbol. And therefore, when MCA has its problems and MCA is the punching bag, people don't see it as an MCA problem, because when we go into an election, we go as BN, as one logo. But also on the other side, Pakatan goes as three separate parties, but they can differentiate between a Chinese party, a mixed party, and a Islamic and Malay party. So that's why in the last election, Barisan Nasional suffered as a whole, except for UMNO and the parties in Sabah and Sarawak, because of this one symbol, meaning that when they hit MCA, they hit the whole of Barisan Nasional. And then when they hit Barisan Nasional, we suffer. You get what I mean?
So what would your solution be?
So that's why the last election actually was just a combination of a good strategy by DAP with PAS and PKR as passengers on the bus, on a Pakatan bus. DAP attacked MCA very well, and because of that, when it came to mixed areas, when it came to urban areas, when it came to semi-urban areas, we lost a lot of votes there. But for UMNO and for parties in Sabah and Sarawak, because in the rural areas we still maintain our dominance, we managed to come up with a good victory in the end.
Okay, we'll talk more about the urban-rural divide in a second, but before that, just Mr. Madhu, in terms of MIC's performance in the general elections, I understand you have been a bit critical about wanting to reform MIC as well and disappointed in the results, is that right?
Okay, in terms of parliamentary result, I think we did better than last election, 2008. But in terms of state elections, state constituencies, I think we didn't do as well as the last elections. I personally feel that if we have changed our approach, our focus, we would have done better than the result that we got. So I think the party actually have to go and see through a radical reformation process.
How would you like them to change the approach?
Okay, I'm looking at, I think I recently wrote an article on how the party can go forward with 10 points. Firstly, I think the branch, division, state and national as well, there need to be a change in the way we approach and the structure we have. In terms of, we need to bring a lot of young guys into the party. If you look at our branches, I think about 60 to 70% of our branch leaders are still those exceeding 60 years and above. So how are we going to change in line with the young voters who are coming in, with the new voters who are coming in? Come general election 14, we're going to have the same issue of new voters coming in, maybe a larger sum, a larger percentage. This election we had 40% youth. It could even go more higher the next round. So how the party is going to drive the change towards bringing these people? Another catchment area is the youths. See, a lot of youths who come to the age, let's say after 40, the party actually didn't have any development plans for them to be around. So those youth leaders, state youth leaders, division youth leaders just disappear. And with them they have a catchment group. Even though they passed 40, they're still a voting bloc, see. So we need to have an approach how to keep them with us, with the party.
Can I add on that?
Yep, sure.
So one of the weaknesses that we had in the last election was about how we communicated our message, as Dr. Gan said. The opposition did very well, extremely well, using social media and internet to basically spread the message out. Specific instructions, even on how the election was supposed to be run, was in a way subliminally transmitted to these young people. I mean, their message was exciting. They used videos. They used a lot of contemporary, young, interesting topics to get the young people interested. And that caught the attention of the young people that my fellow panelist was talking about, and that caught us out because our message was still through the print media and through the terrestrial TV, which audiences are shrinking every day.
Some people said that there might have been too much on mainstream media and overexposure of Barisan Nasional on the main channels, and that may have worked to your detriment. Do you agree with that assessment? Part
of it, but like I said, audiences for those types of media is falling. It's not going up. But it's used in a negative way, portrayed in the social media and also on the internet. TV like your program here, where it's being portrayed as something which is over the top.
To add to that, Michelle, as far as a very effective campaigning method strategy, and of course I would say the Pakatan Rakyat have been very effective, especially in negative campaigning.
Yes.
Negative campaigning is something not something new, but I would say the BN is the old method, and we are not used to that, and we are not not into it, and therefore we cannot capture the imagination.
Can you give me an example of this negative campaigning?
Well, it's negative campaigning, and we talk about spinning the issues, or demonizing or rubbish whatever you do, and to attack, just to rubbish you, dismiss whatever you say, and do not come up with any alternative. But it is very effective in the sense that when you just, for example, like the catchphrase, Uba or Inikarila. So it gives the kind of aspirations that yes, we can make a change. The sense of togetherness is there, and therefore, and whatever that BN has done, and whatever that Najib has done over the years, One Malaysia, One North, has been rubbish. I think the PR has been very effectively rubbishing the One Malaysia.
And also
I can give you an example. For example,
also character assassinations of our leaders.
Correct.
But are you saying, but that's not an exclusively Pakatan problem? We can say
No,
that.
I wouldn't say. I think it cut across both political divide. But I would say the Pakatan Raya is a lot more effective in that.
I'll give you an example. On the election day, for example, I'm from Rawang. So the Dun for Rawang, the candidate for the Dun Rawang, he was at one of the Patiundi at 3 o'clock. But the social media carried news. Oh, this guy got bashed up by one of the voters somewhere else. But he was just in front of us. So this kind of negative news,
like catching hantu, for example.
Yeah, catching hantu, Bangla voters, this perception change in the day. You know, people are following the news by hours. You know,
if you want to really create phantom voters, you will not do it in Cheras, for example. And then YB Tan Kok Wei is allegedly arrested caught one. Look, he is a majority is over 10 or 20,000 any time. If we need another 10 or 20,000, or you say the other of Sarakan, Sabahan or Indons and flew
down.
And
how many aeroplanes?
All these are
unthinkable, unimaginable, but people think about it. People believe it.
Yeah, no, but the fact of the matter, yes, whether the social media campaign was false or whether it's true, the fact of the matter is now Barisan Nasional is facing a crisis of legitimacy in terms of maybe opposition supporters. We've had these rallies, and in terms of the international image of Malaysia and the current government, whether or not it's true, it's been tarnished to an extent about the legitimacy of the BN government.
I would say some campaigning method has tarnished the good name of this country, and not so much about BN or this government.
Yes.
And we see that Malaysia is just like a rogue country. That's a rogue regime. They kind of image. But it's the electoral system that we are having, and you want to change the electoral system. Well, fine, you can argue that.
So in terms of this popular votes argument, sorry, did you?
No, because Pakatan agreed on the electoral voter list before elections. They agreed on the method of the elections because it's our first past the post parliamentary system. And then we talk about all the recommendations that they wanted the EC to implement. And the EC implemented a lot of them, including the use of indelible.
But there you have a huge controversy over the use.
Administration of elections involving 13 million voters is not always going to be smooth. But largely the last election went quite smoothly. For example, there were no reports of violence. I mean, one or two incidents does not make the whole election bad. But my point is, at the end of the day, Pakatan managed to use social media and also the internet to basically create a feeling of Pakatan had already got victory in elections. Who were the people who were asking the public to wait at Putrajaya to stop vehicles taking out documents from government.
Mahathir flying off. He was in the country.
So they are the ones that create this what do you call it, false feeling of victory with the people, and a lot of people bought it. But when the election results came out, it was another thing. And by the way, the turnout in the last election was 85%. Both sides worked very hard in getting the vote out. So even 40,000, or the allegation that 40,000 Banglas were used as voters in the last election, 40,000 does not change a result where it's 85% out of 13 million people, 11 million people went out to vote.
But I think for that, it was the principle of it, though, that people were...
No, but the hype that was created made people, have high expectations that, Barisan would lose. But when it came out, the result came out, it's what do you call it? It's something else. And who does not accept the result of elections? It's Anwar Ibrahim alone.
I think in fact
these two partners have accepted.
I think in fact he claimed victory even before things started.
Came out in
I think having said all that, don't get away with the impression that as if we are blaming the social media. It's not that. I think BN is still quite backward in communicating and engaging the younger generations in terms of information dissemination and engagement method. So therefore, there was talk about new engagement method, new communication method, so that we can reach out. And which we have not been working on it very well and very effectively.
I just like to add responsible use of the social media.
Of course,
Pakatan overdid it.
I have to say, I've been to a BN social media conference where they were training the cyber troopers, and actually the MIC Putra chief was telling people how to tweet saying, in my opinion, this person is a gay. That was the advice being given out to cyber troopers.
Obviously, nobody listened to them. So it's okay.
Okay, so let's move on to. Okay, so are we saying, is there any need to reform the electoral system? Now, Amsterdam's Amir Safridi says, as long as we practice this first past the post system, it will be advantageous to BN. History has shown that every time there is a redemarcation process, BN will perform better. Do we agree or disagree with this statement?
I would like to start on that. I think the EC already given a clear instruction that this time when they do the delineation exercise, they're going to be open and transparent. So since the Barse and all the groups who are very pro change in the electoral system, they are invited to open and see the delineation exercise. So why are we so concerned about the delineation exercise? It's going to favor BN or Pakatan. It's open and transparent. We can do it open and transparent manner.
Madhu, allow me to chip in on that one. I think the voters are more concerned. I think all this can be done in a very open manner. There's nothing to hide. And accept that probably over the weightage of the voters, rural and urban divide, and that traditionally in all first past the post system represents problems because a ruler, because of the geographical area, for example like Wabi Tengku Razali's area, huge place, the biggest constituencies in Malaysia, and if you want to have same numbers of 80,000 or 100,000 of voters there, I think probably will cover up a huge part of Kelantan. And if it's geographical problems that he's facing in a very rural area, as compared to say Pantai or Pantai Baru or Seputeh, and that is something that really look into it. Even in England, for example, I've done some research before that. I've seen the variations. The most numbers of voters is over 100,000, and the least one is 20 over 1,000. But of course, those cases are very isolated. It's only a few. But ours tend to have more, and that's one. Number two is because of the Malaysians agreement. The Sarawakian and Sabahan, they always want to have more than 31% of representation. The 1/3 of the representation, so that it will not be devoured by the decisions of the peninsulas, because they have less representations there. So therefore, in Sarawak and Sabah, you tend to have a lot of constituency with very small numbers of people. And of course, their area is huge. From one place to the other place, it probably takes 2 hours of boat ride, or 3 hours, and it's not accessible by road. So we have to bear in mind all these geographical problems. But of course, all this must be done in a very open manner. And I'm sure if you forever thinking of that you want to be in government because of the urban voters support you and not the rural voters supporting you, I think it's not fair. Likewise for BN, forever think if we were thinking that we can be consolidating our power, we can still govern this country, having only the rural support and forgetting about the urban support, I think it's not fair to the country also. And bearing in mind that this is urbanization process going on. And in fact, I also feel, Michelle, there's another third point that I always feel that our electoral reform have left out one particular point, which is a lot of people, they do not live in the town, they do not work in the town for the last 20 years. Just like my classmate. He's been away from my Kelang town for the last 25 years. And he hardly goes back to the town. But when it comes for election, he will go back to vote. And I think, our is a constituency first past the post system, and constituency management is equally important. So the last thing we want, of course, national issues, community issues are all very important, public policies all very important, but the constituency management is equally important. And therefore, if you have voters who do not live there, who do not work there, and there's no relevance in that place, and come back to vote, and
don't know anything,
that make a lot of difference, and it's not fair to the people on the ground and live and work there. And that is something that I feel that we, in the electoral reform, this is something that we really have to look at. People have to move away from the town for so long, a certain period of time. There must be a cut-off point that they either encourage or by compulsion that they should vote in the place they work or they stay. Otherwise, we will forever having these problems. People coming back, and let's say someone coming back from do not live in a small town. When he comes back, he happens to have this look of a or maybe a Bugis look, and then you probably think that it's an Indon again, and then a lot of shouting, a lot of allegation, and because he doesn't live there, but he's a voter there for the last 4 or 5 terms, and I think it's not fair.
I agree with that, because at the end of the day, demographics, demographical changes in Malaysia also plays an impact on how the constituencies are delineated. Okay, the world does not evolve. I mean, Malaysia does not evolve around KL or Selangor or Penang or Perak. There are other people around the country. Before, we never had a problem about delineation because we were holding 2/3 majority. So we had the process was done correctly with all the factors taken in, and then we go to Parliament, we vote. Even though the opposition didn't agree, we voted, because we had 2/3 majority, Barisan Nasional, we voted the delineation in. The new constituencies were created because of our 2/3 majority. Now, we don't have that possibility. Going ahead, the opposition shouldn't harp on what they want. They should actually sit down, discuss with both sides, EC. Discuss and also us as well, because we need our agreement, and then come to Parliament and find a consensus. But do not go out and attack Barisan Nasional and say everything's not fair, the system's no good, should throw out everything.
No, but these comments about the delineation system is not being made by the opposition, it's being made by researchers who said this.
I know, but it's being brought by Pakatan Rakyat because they say the system is not fair. All I'm saying
so are we saying that it is? We're saying it's transparent and
procedures are there.
So now that
once we've done it, we go to Parliament, we vote. If we can't get 2/3 majority to agree,
correct.
That's it. I mean,
now that we don't have the 2/3 majority, so Pakatan has all the reason. It's going to be more open.
I do agree that we need a consensus for re-alienations, because the time has come. That is the last re-alienations of 1999.
Yeah, but the next one's due
10 years ago.
2003 before.
Just before 2003.
Okay, let's move on to, and this is something that we have been touching on throughout this conversation. But Chinese tsunami or urban tsunami? What do we think?
Let me start with this. I've been asked about the Chinese tsunami. I would say it's a combination of both. Okay, first is urban-rural divide, and secondly is Chinese tsunami. Now, why do I say that? In the urban areas, the urban voters' aspirations, their demands are different. So, because they live in Kuala Lumpur, for example, Klang Valley, they have more of the same thing. But the Chinese tsunami is apparent in rural area. So, for example, a place like Keluang, for example, and I see the return of the Malay voters in BN in favor of BN, and also the Indian voters, but not the Chinese, dropping a lot further. So if you say there's no Chinese tsunami, I disagree. But if you say it's just mere Chinese tsunami, I also disagree, because it's a combination of both. It's a rural-urban divide, urban revolt, urban tsunami, and also the Chinese tsunami. I think this is all borne out by empirical evidence, and there's no to say Chinese tsunami is not fair against Chinese and all that, and this is all political language, and this is posturing to show that.
Najib said Chinese tsunami.
But it has some element of truth in that. You cannot discount the fact, and I cannot tell myself there's no Chinese tsunami. But I would say on top of that, there's also an urban tsunami. And for example, like in Klang Valley, what are the demand? What really matters to the urban people? One of the things that I can think of all along that I hold this quite strongly is about the PPSMI, the teaching of science and maths in English. And I would say the whole Klang Valley. And if we want to really look at it from the ethnic point of view, the Malay, the Chinese and the Indians are all in favor mathematics and science to be taught in English. The Malay is quite divided. So these issues, I think, touch on a lot of people in the urban area. So it has gone into the minds of all the parents, all the voters, and therefore this is one of the issues that erupted. So this is the urban people; they think differently as compared to the rural people. So that's why I always think that we should be pro-choice. We make available certain schools to be taught in English and certain schools to be taught in Bahasa Malaysia, and we leave it to the choice of the parents and the schools to decide, and just some administrative arrangement. And that is something that, therefore, I said, when you say there's no Chinese tsunami, I think it's not fair. But if you say it's just so Chinese tsunami, I think it's not fair either. So it's a combination of both.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I think the bigger picture is urban tsunami. Because largely the Chinese live in a city areas, so it becomes part of the larger urban tsunami is the Chinese tsunami. You know, first you have a big
Madhu,
picture.
Even in new villages.
Yeah, new villages, a lot of Chinese. Yeah,
and they have that as well.
Correct.
So if we're talking about, say, less than 20% of the Chinese voters in the new village voting for BN or for MCS candidates for that matter, and that shows a lot also.
But what about Shah Alam, where past 80% Malay voters and
It's urban.
it's an urban area. Shah Alam, Kota Raja, Kapar, it's an urban area. So the thinking, like what Senator Gan say, issue of PPA, SMI is one of the issues. Education. They're looking at the law, security, law, crime. You know, they are looking at these issues. For them, that's more important. If you look at Subang, for example, people who are doing well there, for them, policy matters are more important than bread and butter issues. Yeah. But if you look at somewhere like very rural area like Hulu Selangor, maybe the bread and butter issues more higher in terms of Subang.
Development,
development, yeah.
Dr. Jazlan, would you think it's more of an urban-rural divide issue rather than a...
It's mixed. Like I said, a lot of the opposition attack was on Selangor, Perak and Penang, which they did very well. In Johor, they tried, they did a very good strategy where they targeted, they said we'll win 16 parliamentary seats, we'll win 40 state seats, and the people bought it. So the DAP did their job to attack the Chinese vote, to take the Chinese vote, and then they hoped that the PAS and PKR would take the Malay vote. Enough votes combined, they would win the federal government. What happened was the DAP was very successful in taking the Chinese vote, but not PAS and PKR, which not enough Malays or Indians were pulled to win seats enough to form government. So the last election, to me, it was just good strategy by the DAP. Very good strategy, where they created celebrities like Kit Siang, created celebrities like Tiong Ching, Liu Chin Tong, sent them to Johor. And then, even Saruna Ayub contested against me in Pulai. And next door, Kelang Patah Kit Siang contested against Dato' Ghani Osman. And then with a good social media campain, they managed to shake a lot of people, shake a lot of people's imagination, and then they decided, oh yeah, we can actually do it. But the results didn't come up that way. So now it shows how weak Pakatan Rakyat is actually.
But isn't this very dangerous rhetoric to get into, saying that it's a Chinese tsunami, saying it's a Chinese issue? What about the reconciliation issues? Are we worried that the Chinese are going to be offended, as it is after this all came out?
Like I said, the Chinese bought into the story that
Pakatan is going to win. Yeah.
Right? But
no, but by saying things like this, that the Chinese, it just create an element of fear within the Chinese community as well.
It's election strategy. We're not accusing the Chinese of betraying the country or of not supporting Barisan Nasional. We're saying that it was a good election strategy by Pakatan. It did not work this time. But it doesn't mean that the Chinese are against the government. They are not. But we need to do a better job in overcoming and convincing the Chinese.
And how are you going to do that?
My God, the Prime Minister has been the most open Prime Minister that we ever had. In fact, a lot of Malays also are angry at him because he seems to be giving a lot of incentives, giving a lot of money to Chinese schools, to temples, to Indian schools, to Indian temples, and then the scholarship issue, places in public university, scholarship places being given to more non-Malays. So he's been quite all embracing.
I think there's what Dato' says correct. There's a general consensus that under Najib's administration for the last 4 years, that it's a lot more open, a lot more inclusive, and better allocation of resources, and addressed to quite a number of communal issues. And of course, MCA has its own weakness, and we do not counter. And I think our election strategies and campaign method probably has been wholly ineffective in that sense, and still same old approach and same old method, and therefore we fail. And there are reasons for that. And of course, we are doing a post-mortem into this. But the inclusive policy of Najib, I think, still something is really patently lacking. And that's what I want to say this, that inclusiveness must start from home. Now, why do I say that? I have to elaborate a little bit on this. The inclusiveness, when Najib came up with this One Malaysia thing, and it was such a big theme, and people feel good. It's actually when the initial stage, the sense of be part of everything, part of nation building, part of the society, and the sense of togetherness was there. And they were so successful that the DAP in particular, or Pakistans, tried to rubbish One Malaysia. Anything One Malaysia is rubbish it, so that you can take away the hello and take away the iconic theme of One Malaysia of this. And Najib has come up with a lot of new formula. As for example, JPS scholarship has always been a thorn in the Chinese communities, overseas China. So MCA articulated, look, under Najib, we have done very well, and almost 40% of these overseas scholarships are recipients are from Chinese community. And now, but how do we come to this? We come to this with the formula as 40% on meritocracy, 40% based on quota, which is under 153, and a certain percentage is reserved for Wiftra, and 10% for the social disadvantage, and 10% for the Sarawakian and Sabahan. We have this formula, but what's something we have failed? We do not present this formula to the Pakatan. Tell me what is your formula? You have to tell us your formula. So we whatever we do, we become very defensive. We do not
transparent.
Look, what is our formula? So can you tell me you have a better policy? We have 40-40-10-10 formula. What is your formula? If your formula is a 60-20-10-10 or 60-40 or whatever formula, which can capture and which people feel a lot more better. That's better. But somehow we do not challenge on that. So in terms of political articulation, we have failed in that sense. But Najib's administration has come up with this combination formula of need-based and merit-based, and so that the countries can move forward. But something still failed, which I said when I started, patently failed. That inclusiveness, why it should start from home, start from BN, because the political apparatus, whatever theme you have, policy you have, agenda you have, we have to move forward. And somehow the component parties, sad to say that we are not seen to be part of the decision-making process, or at least not effective enough. So therefore we fail to capture the imaginations of the younger generations, the voters, that the old model of BN, somehow something is missing somewhere. And to me, I think it's the inclusiveness about BN as a political structure and a political model, and has failed to convey that we are inclusive enough.
Okay, I'll just stop you there, because that moves on to my next point. In terms of one thing that DAP and Pakatan has championed is obviously moving away from this race-based politics, so to speak. And I know you've been saying that a lot of issues that MCA champions is not just race-based issues, called communal, moving beyond that. But we've also heard a lot of speculation in the last few weeks about the possibility of the parties merging and becoming one party, One Malaysia, or some few names have been thrown around, because you recognize the need that the last election showed voters are clearly moving away from the idea of having race-based parties. Now, can any of you confirm that this is actually something that is actually in the works, or there's some serious concern about this?
Well, Umno, as the dominant party or the leading party in Barisan Nasional, we will discuss the idea. But unfortunately, historically, the formation of Barisan Nasional also was, during independence, was done on a compromise basis. Therefore, we didn't want to basically be the dominant community. We tried to get everybody in, so we divide a lot of things in a ratio that maybe doesn't work as well today. So that's why even when it comes to the cabinet, we divide amongst the races from Kedah, Perlis, right down to Sarawak. That's why we have a cabinet that's big. 32 ministers for a population of 28 million is very big because of this formula. Moving forward, I think we still can't discard that model totally because of the urban-rural divide, and also because of, I'm not being racial about it, but some Malays would not vote for a Chinese candidate or an Indian candidate. Voluntarily. But if Barisan will represent the candidates, but if Pakatan say we put a Chinese candidate in a Malay majority area, and Pakatan puts a Malay candidate on that side, the Malays would still, have a hesitancy to vote for a Chinese candidate. They might vote for the other side because that guy is a Malay.
So are we saying they're voting based on candidate?
Yeah. So all I'm saying is this: we are heading towards a mature democracy where people are more open about politics, but it's mostly in urban areas. 70% of the population is in urban areas, but that 30% of people live in rural areas where there are majority of seats.
It's our population demographic, where the kampung, the new village will always be there, the estate will always be there, the kampung Melayu will always be there, and you're not going to run away with it. You're not going to move into kampung Melayu. The Malay is going to live in a Chinese new village. So that is the demographic reality that we have.
So this 30% of the population will actually determine the majority of seats in parliament because of the old historical parliamentary seat alienation, right? But unfortunately, 70% of the population that lives in the city areas will always be involved in the smaller number of parliamentary seats.
Probably not 70% at all. I think quite a number of them go back to vote.
I know, but unless they actually go back and or register in the rural areas, because once they move to the city areas, their families, they marry here, they have families here, their children live in city areas, they don't live in the rural areas.
Okay, but even Rembau MP Kari Jamaluddin has said, I'm quoting him here, "We are no longer attractive to voters. We are still seen as archaic and out of touch. But the changes we bring must not be merely superficial. Just changing Barisan's name is not enough. The Rakyat are looking for substantial change." Now, if it's not merging together to form one party, what is the solution in terms of addressing this? Because obviously, whether it's a youth swing or an urban divide, the results reflect there is.
Let me just put it this way: even Pakatan Rakyat is actually a collection of three parties. They try to compromise. DAP takes care of the Chinese, Pakatan is in the middle, and PAS goes after the Malay vote. Even they are compromised, but they are not officially under one symbol, one banner.
But they have discarded. They say they do not.
They say, but
on you look at the ESCO allocations.
It's all still race based.
The seats allocations, all that, by and large, are still ethnic community based.
Can I add to this?
But do you think that if BN continues on in the way that they do, that in terms of maintaining this, if you continue along ethnic based party lines, as opposed to Pakatan Rakyat, who you say, even though they say they're not ethnically based, but by policy they're preaching that they are multiracial.
But people do not see through what they're doing. Let me just say that even a vote on the argument on popular votes, okay? They say that we have 47% popular vote, but we have 60% seats. In England, the Conservative Party has 35% of the vote, but has 47% of the seats.
No, Penang is the same, Selangor is the same.
So, but that's politics, it's perception, even if you say that.
So my point is, you already have the traditional way, the historical way, how the country is formed. To change that fabric, to change the whole landscape, it's not going to be easy as what Pakatan says. Okay, we can demolish all race-based policies. We can cut through race effectively, right? To become one Malaysia, one Malaysian race, where Malay, Chinese, Indian doesn't matter. Yeah, you want to head to there. But the road is still long.
Can I add that to that?
Yeah, sure.
I think over time it will take a longer time to get to there. A single party of a BN where we have all the component party merging into one single party. But I think we have to realize that the Chinese have their needs, the Indians have the needs, and the Malays have their special needs as well.
But can't you address that?
Yeah, that's why I'm getting there.
All the time.
We are adjusting all the time, but maybe our formula have to be redressed. Look at it differently. The approach have to be differently. For example, in the urban area, the thinking of the people are different. They didn't really look at who's the candidate. This time you can see a lot of people just voted for opposition because of the Uba or the Inikali, the catchphrase that they created, because like Dato' said earlier, the Pakatan Rakyat actually has created a perception that they're going to by and large win this election. So everybody is expecting to win an election, to take over the Putrajaya. But at the end it didn't happen, so they are frustrated, and that's why this rally and all that are coming up, because they build up this reputation and the expectation.
We're underestimating voters here. We keep talking about how they're buying into Pakatan, and they're buying. Similarly, we can argue the same thing for Barisan Nasional, the BN's voters or MCA's everything is, politics is about selling the image that you put forward. So don't you think that given the swing, or so to speak, that if Barisan Nasional was on an even playing field with Pakatan Rakyat, saying we both might technically still champion our individual rights, but we're putting forward a front of that we are one coalition. If that's what you're saying Pakatan Rakyat is doing, why not BN do the same?
No, my idea is I think over the next 4 to 5 years before the next election, I personally feel that we need a single party with all these components merging together, because whether you are Malay or Indian, you are Chinese, a poor is a poor. The need of the poor can be addressed by a single party. That's my opinion. If you need education, everybody needs education. But of course there are special needs of the Malay, the Tamil school, the Chinese school, they need to be addressed separately. But even a single party, I mean, to me, over time, you can have a single coalition over time. That's my personal...
How much time are we? What's the time frame here?
I think before the next general election.
But would you say this is something
you can't do it overnight? You can't do it overnight?
Let me just rephrase what I said just now. You have the demographics change to urban areas. Majority population lives in urban areas. Minority lives in the rural areas. But the seat allocation is still favoring the rural areas. Okay, to move forward, we need to do redelineation, which if we don't find a consensus between Pakatan and BN, we can't change the mix makeup. If you can't change the seat makeup, then you can't really enforce or create this Malaysian society, the Malaysian people, one Malaysia kind of society, and therefore it's very difficult for us to morph Barisan Nasional into one single party, as the voters majority of voters may want.
Okay, so moving into one.
I think maybe allow me to chip on this. Actually, in fact, Misha, there are two issues here. Whether those ethnic-based party, be it UMNO, MIC or MCAs, to move away from being an ethnic-based party and opening up, and two, whether BN should open up to become a single party. I think there are two separate issues. Okay, to move away from ethnic-based party. And so what is the failure of the ethnic-based party? Of course, ethnic-based party, and you will always be thinking of this is very racial. There are a lot of racists inside there. I think that's not fair. And I would see even the multiracial party like DAP, they are a lot more right-wing than MCA for that matters. So that aside, and in Malaysia, we still have another added problem. This is a religious-based party. When you want to move away from race-based party, and what about religious-based party? Are you going to outlaw that as well? Should we encourage them to open up and not to be religious-based? Because religion is between the human being and the relevant with the God. So why should you bring in religion as one of the key and the leading agenda of a party politics? But this is Malaysia. We're very liberal in the sense we're open. Okay, this is race-based party politics. Race-based politics, I think it works well 50 years ago. Because of a demographic and how we, this town area, they're all mostly Chinese, and therefore, and those days when they have communication problems, people are less educated, and the society's needs, the voters' needs, people need to ask you to help to fill up forms, applying, going to government office, try to persuade them to do something, this and that, overdevelopment requirement. So they're a lot more comfortable to talk to a leader coming from their own community whom they think they can understand their problems better. So now, of course, moving away from race-based politics, it's important that all leaders, be it from BN, from Pakatan, that we must understand other communities' problems. Then you can be a leaders for all. That's one part of it. Second, and for me, for MCA, I think we are seriously looking into it, but to open up to become a multiracial party. At least that we show that we are determined, we are committed to opening up in that sense. But to do so, we have to go back to the party, talk to the grassroots, to explain to them why we need to do that. And perhaps after that, and from MCA's point of view, probably we'll try to merge with some other parties like Gerakan, for example, if we can, or SUPP for that matter, so that we can merge. But if we're talking about a larger issue, is a one single BN. I think there's a lot more limitations on that. I would say, like Parti Persatuan Bersatu, sort of Tan Mahmud, do you think he will agree with that? He's from Sarawakian. There's no UMNO presence there. Why should I welcome you to East Malaysia? And we feel that this is a peninsular party coming over. So a lot of all this, we have to look into it.
But that's a peninsula and Sabah Sarawak part.
It's Malaysia. We're talking about Malaysia.
The Sarawakians,
it's not KL,
the Sarawakian
it's
political parties. Not to say they don't welcome you, but they do not see the necessity of it. Because as
their politics are different.
We're doing well. But I think this is very visionary. Probably Madhu, I think we probably would not be in time to do it within one election. Probably in another next 10 years time.
10 years.
And that our leaders have to adjust ourselves. That look, we are leaders for all communities, and we serve all. Not that we just serve in the Chinese community or the UMNO leaders, please help me to jaga kampong, and you help me to jaga the Indian enclave. I think that's no good. So leaders have to go to the ground and to access to all. But again, we have demographic problems. Like Spute, for example, 80%, you know, the voters are Chinese. So there's nothing wrong that Madhu is going there to become the representative. There's nothing wrong with that. But you know, people relate. There must be human sentiments. It is also some psychological barrier still. So we are still way off. America comes to the present stage. Obama becomes the president 150 years or more after the liberalizations of the Negro and those days. So,
but Rafizi Ramli contested in Pandan and majority Chinese area as well. So
that is urban area. I think that is good starting. I would say this is good starting. But likewise, and then Abdul Ghani has been very successful as and very inclusive as a political leaders coming from UMNO in Johor, has done so much good things. But he has to lose substantially to Lim Kee Siang, and the Chinese sentiments is always there.
For 18 years.
And he's done a lot because I have a lot of temple problems cannot resolve. I'm going to see him. He said, yes, there's no issue. He instructed DO to prove this. No issue. Why should it be so difficult to the Chinese community? So I've dealt with him many times. I know him. He's a very inclusive person. He's a very liberal person. But coming back to one Barisan Nasional, I think still one thing that whether we can see that BN, the dominating apart from the UMNO, that is something when the communal issues are not resolved. Some very small not resolved, and the dominant
3.2 million votes.
I know. So I mean, of leaders and
seats in
grassroots and different peoples are involved in different geographies.
So that's how it happens in.
And because of that, it's relevant
perception.
It's part of the reality and part of the perceptions that whether a dominating UMNO in BN, and that is something I think will make the component parties finding it difficult to articulate. In fact,
so you feel there is a dominating presence of UMNO?
At least there's a certain reality of it and certain perception of it that make the component parties feel they are weak. You know, it's to put it not so much of a political scientist language. The coalitions of BN, and we look it back in the 50 years ago, it's just like a tribal. It's a tribal warfare. It's tribes. Different tribes get together, and they work well those days. But when one particular tribe, the majority tribe, which is reality anyway, he has to take the lead. When this majority tribes is seen to be dominating over others, and when the ethnic minorities feel that their relevance, their say, as if they're not taken into account. And in fact, they are not that many.
But we're not in a tribal area though. Huh? Are you comparing a tribal analogy to the coalition?
Yes, that's coalition. So that's how. Of course, there are other political scientist language, but I would say it's just a tribe. Communities get together, let's fight for independence, fight for this nation building. We work very well for the last 12
So the BN tribe is working very well?
So, I mean, for the last... but time has gone on.
We've been in power for 56 years.
Yes.
But time has gone on. Time has gone on, and
things
people
have changed.
feel that we need to change. The nation has come to the stage that we need to change, and therefore BN has to change. And therefore there's just talk about BN opening up, and the reality will be eventually that the UMNO leaders, because they represent the biggest community, so certainly that their leaders will have who would have more says. But it's over the small communal issues. In fact, there are not that many. Just articulate it well and let people understand.
Can I add to that?
And,
Yeah,
and
sure.
therefore, just we move forward. I think that's how we should do it.
I just wanted to ask you something in terms of MIC, because you were saying that the possibility, fine, we've said that it's going to be a while before all the parties form one united party, but you also mentioned something, you mentioned about the possibilities of parties merging with other parties, and I understand MIC has been in talks or might be considering that option of merging with other Indian based parties. Is that right?
Correct. In the last CWC we did talk about it. MIC is initiating talks to IPF, PPP and Makal Sakti, and maybe for a start we'll collaborate and work together first. I think it's not a overnight success. You're going to just merge. They're just not going to leave their members like that, deregister the party. All this is a process. They build up the party over the years. Nobody just going to leave their home and stay in somebody else's house just like that overnight. So this process will take
But why
time.
is that? Is this to consolidate the Indian voter
it's
base?
strengthen our Indian cooperation as well as the voter base.
Well, now you have Hindraf part of your...
Hindraf is an NGO, it's not a political
Okay,
party.
so what is your view on that, by the way?
I think Hindraf in 2008 was a force to be reckoned with. In the last general election, I was on the ground. I don't see that Hindraf is firstly, it's not a political party, it's an NGO. It doesn't have an attraction over the Indian community. If you talk to people about Vedamurthy, a lot of even Hindraf leaders say they are surprised why this guy
All of a sudden.
how the sudden became a deputy minister.
So what am I sensing here? Are you also surprised by his?
Yeah, I'm also surprised.
But I think we have to, Michelle, we have to look at all this so-called NGO in our society, be it Hindraf, Tongjong for that matters, or Perkasa.
Yeah.
A very renowned political scientist used to say this: we shouldn't look at them as extremists. We shouldn't look at them as extremists, well, because they are fighting for a certain rights, or certain privileges, or certain rights. So they are rights group. If you look at that, they think that this is their rights. They want to fight for it. So there's nothing wrong with that. So Hindraf will have their demand, Perkasa will have their demand, Tongjong will have their demand, and some of these are very communal in nature.
Yeah.
But as long as all these issues gel in well with national interest, it's a communal interest. If communal interest is part of the wider national interest, why not? So therefore, even if one day, and I'm contest in Kampung Melayu and or Sembrong, Dato' Sri Syamudi's place, and because I represent myself as a Malaysian, and although I'm ethnic identity-wise I'm Chinese, but I speak Bahasa Malaysia. I understand your culture, tradition probably better than you do, and you have confidence in me, and I'm a leader that accept by all. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing.
Because we have to stop you there because we have to move forward a bit because we're running out of time. But I just wanted to go to some reader questions because we did tell them that you would be in the studio today. The first is from Gan Kalun, and that's the question: can you stop racism and tackle racist bigots with full might of the law? If someone wants to take this and keep the answer to about 1 to 2 minutes, that would be fantastic. I don't know if Dr. Jazlan wants to.
Well, when someone makes a statement, it's up to the authorities to basically assess whether it's racist or not, and then there are laws to deal with it. You know.
What if it's a politician making the racist statements?
Like I said, it's up to the authorities, involved police, and the Attorney General to basically determine whether what they say is racist or not.
And how do you think the authorities have handled this so far in terms of?
Patchy record, but we have procedures, we have laws to handle with it.
Okay, because one of the follow-up things to that was that people who have politicians who have made racist comments in the past were nominated as candidates, for example, Zulkifli Nordin.
Can I add to that?
Nordin lost, so at the end of the day, the voters have made their own judgment, so it's fine.
But what is Barisan Nasional's stance on that then, in terms of politicians making racist comments?
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I personally think Zul Nordin's issue, I mean, we'll be very specific in Zul Nordin's issue. It has affected the Indian votes, and I think if Zul Nordin would not fielded as a candidate, Barisan Nasional would have easily got another 20 parliament seats to be won, because if you look at the demographics, Kota Raja, Kapa, Shah Alam, all the area where nearby where Zul Nordin contested, we have a lot of high population of Indians. In Kota Raja, we have 30% of
so
Indians.
You think that was a mistake?
I personally think that was not a good strategy.
I thought it was a bad choice.
Yeah.
A choice that I can understand.
Yeah.
But anyway, the outcome of it, I think, served the nation well.
Yeah.
Is
It's
that,
a lesson.
we don't want leaders come up with a strong stance and.
How did it happen then? How did it even happen? If everybody.
But as I said, it's a choice that I couldn't understand. But anyway, the outcome of it is good. The people have to speak, and at least they will give Najib the PM.
Next round.
Not that I don't want to try. Well, that is not what people want. So at least you can explain to the UMNO or the Malay community. Look, a leader of this nature, sorry, is out of time. So a racist is something to be shameful about, or claim to be, or someone alleged to be a racist. But the thing is this, Michelle. When we say it, a lot of racial remarks that has been put up, you ask the person who said it, he doesn't feel it that way. He's fighting for his own rights. So we have to leave it to the public to realize. So whether the full might of the law enforcement would actually resolve all this problem, probably not. Probably not really. So I think public educations, or we openly shun away from racial remark, and mind you, it's important that the next time I will see a Chinese guy, I will say, look, there's nothing straight about Chinese other than the hair. You know, this kind of racial remark.
Yeah.
We say it in a joking manner, probably don't quite feel it. Orang India, orang hitam, we probably don't quite feel it. But in a public sphere,
Yes.
and when you're leaders, and you have to refrain from saying all this.
Yes,
And on your private
politician.
spheres, over a drink or two, you chit chat just for the laugh of a joke of it, and this is reality of life. So all throughout the world is the same. But when in a public sphere and in educational institutions and leaders, teachers, we must refrain and shun away from racial remarks.
All right, so
Can I do
I know you've answered that, you touched on this just now, but some people felt that by Prime Minister Najib Razak saying it was a Chinese tsunami, that was a comment that was racial in nature. Would you agree, or
as I said, it's a combination of both. There's an element of truth in that.
Okay, so there's an element of truth
in that,
Alright.
but it's not the whole part of it.
Okay, sorry. All right, let's go on to the next.
Can I add?
Yep, quickly.
Yeah, I think people are looking for all-inclusive candidate. They're not looking at a candidate, a Malaysian. I think we talked about it just now. People looking at you as a Malaysian. You don't talk racism about one particular community or some religion or issue like that. They're looking at all-inclusive person. So maybe Barisan Nasional in the next coming general election will take all this into stock, and when they feel a candidate, they're actually looking at all-inclusive person who have not in the public sphere given some racial statement. And also we should learn from now that the people are actually watching us. The next four and a half years, people are continuously watching us.
They will always be watching.
Whatever public debate, public statement that you make should be really carefully made.
In fact, we shouldn't read this tsunami out of context in entirety when we talk about it as if it's very racial statement. In fact, I would say the Chinese voters, their aspirations, their demand, what they look for, and what the aspect of government is different from other communities.
Correct.
They were talking about for public safety, security issues, education, and some other minor or some others communal issues. So because of that, they're unhappy. Voters are unhappy. But in 1999, for example, that the Chinese, despite the chaotic situations created by Anwar then, the Reformasi, and so that historical context, the Chinese also support Barisan Nasional. Why? Because they feel that the stability of this government, of this country, is a lot more important over personal political ambition. So these are the things that, when they talk about Chinese tsunami, don't look at it as if this is some hatred against government. I think it's not that. I think it's not fair.
I think it's a policy that they're looking at. They're not so happy with the policy over the last 5 years.
We're going to move on to the next question. All right, so we'll take one from Shanmugapriyan Ramaswamy. Let's go to the next one, because we'll skip this one. Do BN have the guts to face a re-election in controversial areas disputed by the opposition? Who would like to take this one?
I don't understand the question.
I think basically one of the demands is that one of the rallies is saying that they should have re-elections in areas where they feel that fraud took place, or where
I really want to say this. I'm a lawyer by profession.
But we feel candidates in all the parliamentary seats anyway. So
we have candidates who lost marginally as well from BN. So look, the controversial areas. I'm a lawyer by professions. Please go through the due process of law. Respect the institutions. If there's a disputed, go to the court, and if there's a genuine dispute, grievances, then let the court decide according to law.
Okay, so
don't just say that just because you don't get the result you want and you want a re-election, and it'll be endless. Tomorrow you win it, I'm not happy, I will call for a re-election.
But then I suppose the question is, you have faith in the current electoral system, and if you had to do it all again, do you think free and fair, as so people are claiming, the outcome would be the same?
And cost.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Why do so many people die in police custody?
See, this is the kind of things that is spread out on the internet without real, proof, tangible proof or whatever,
I mean, it's been brought in the spotlight because of the
and people believe it because it's repeated many times. So it comes to a point where the untruth becomes truth.
I think it was 156 people, if I'm not mistaken, that have died in police custody in the last from 2000 to 2000. It's within the last 10 years.
Could be due to many reasons we don't know about.
Yes, I think it's only fair that all death case in police custody, there should be inquest and what happened, and then if the victims of the family or the family members are unhappy, can always lodge report and for a thorough investigations to cry foul over the matters. And,
can I add to that?
Some may be okay. Maybe the conditions in our police custody, the lockup, may not be a 3-star and so good, and people may suffer from other reasons for death. So that you must talk reasons. You just come a blanket statement, so many people die. I'm not saying that there are no people died in police custody. It happens. That's why the new IGP said they will look into this. They want to ensure there's no more such cases taking place. But we want to allow this to whitewash as if every day there's someone dying in the police custody. I think that is kind of ruthlessness that the impressions that some of the opposition leaders try to spin and lead people to believe such things actually take place.
I would like to comment on this because I think a lot of Indians have actually died out of police custody in prisons, and we have so many cases, Kugan, now Dharmendran latest, and many others. I think the government actually have to come up with a real investigative team or committee. I think today they announced this, the EIC will be there to investigate. I think a lot more enforcement required. Sometimes they say, okay, we move these people from desk job, from service to desk job. I think that's not enough.
I think suspension,
further investigation are necessary. And I think these kind of issues actually it's actually affecting our votes.
This is something we cannot condone, that people, our people die in police custody. It's not something acceptable.
Okay.
But on the background,
the system can be improved.
Yeah, definitely can be improved. And on the background of that, we also need to know the specific problem the individual have.
Sorry, Dr.
If the public doesn't know what actually Dharmendran does.
The government manages the country, but there are institutions like the police, the civil service that have their own disciplinary apparatus.
But the Home Ministry does obviously.
Yeah, I know. But when I remember the IGP, not being happy with Dato' Hishamuddin for interfering in police affairs. Because they're supposed to be independent to a certain extent. So if the EIC, which is actually performing a role like the IPCMC, is able to do the job, the government shouldn't be blamed, or government shouldn't be, asked to interfere in the affairs of the police force, unless there's a major issue.
I think the government, if EIC cannot function, then they have to go to IPCMC. This is really affecting the Indian community. We got a lot of people are dying in the police custody.
Okay, let's move on.
But on the background, we also have to know why the individuals have their individual cases. That doesn't come out to public, and nobody knows. So that maybe the government need to be transparent a little bit on that,
Okay, let's go to the next question from Linda Alfred Fernandez on Facebook. Is Mahathir still behind the decision making of UMNO? Obviously, Dr. Jazlan, you can take this first, and this is still a very popular question.
Next, you're going to answer about.
It doesn't deserve an answer.
Sorry?
It doesn't deserve an answer.
It doesn't deserve an answer. Well, because this is popular sentiment, so you have to respond to it.
He makes his personal comment. It's up to how the leaders and also the members of the party react to it. But he's no longer Prime Minister and no longer dictating, how decisions are being made in UMNO. But it does have some influence.
He does, because he does comment quite a lot about. He comments a lot. So to what extent does his comments actually factor into what happens?
Do you know actually how many of his comments are actually being taken up by the Prime Minister and the party?
I do not know. So you're in the party, so you can tell me.
Just look at this. I'd rather not talk about Mahathir. If Lee Kuan Yew was to say something today in Singapore, you think the current administrations will not take heed of some advice? Not necessarily agree with him, but if he says something which is, it makes sense, then now leaders will take advice just like any other statesman or any other leaders or any other people.
Okay, so
suggesting something.
So the Umno man is saying no, he just has some influence. So the MIC and MCA from the external point of view, do you know if
that is for God's
yeah, we know at the end of the day, he can actually make his opinions private and not public.
I think all political leaders who has stayed long in power, like Mahathir or Datuk Sri Samiwelu, they have some influence. Definitely they have influence. They've known the branch chairman, the division chairman for 30 over years. How can they don't have any influence?
Okay, so we're saying a bit of influence but not making the decision.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Okay, well, we have to answer the question. All right, next, Cecilia Teo asks, what do the three of you have to say about the selective persecution of opposition politicians? Now, this is in light of, I believe it's in light of all the cases of Tamrin Ghaffar, Dian Chua, all of them being persecuted and being charged under sedition laws for things they've said at rallies. And the argument is that why hasn't the ex-judge who made comments been persecuted under the same law? And every time someone makes a comment that's seditious, why is it always the opposition politicians who are charged and not those?
Like I said, the police are there, the AG is there. They make the decision who they want to take action to, and they still have to bring it to court and actually prove it in court to punish these people. So to say it's persecution, it's not wrong. They haven't been proven wrong anyway. They haven't been brought to court anyway.
Let the law take its own course. Yeah. And I would say persecution is a very strong word.
Yeah.
And if you say it was selective prosecution,
it's not selective.
This is bringing them to court, and that may be why. But because there's cry foul, there are people lodging report that this is flouting the laws.
But doesn't mean that they'll be proven.
But
yes.
are we saying
they may be vindicated at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That police is taking the case wrongly.
But are we saying though that based on your answers, are we saying that there is a clear separation between police power and the government, that the police act really?
Definitely there is.
Of course, but there's obviously the perception again, and we all.
The Home Minister made the first statement when he took over powers that he doesn't want to be interfering, and it's very clear that the police has been assigned specific
jobs. Just imagine the politicians, cabinet ministers, they are there to set policies and priorities of allocations and government as public spendings. And the last things they want to do for a minister is to be involved in a police case complaint. An ambulance broke down and it leads to the.
But this is an opposition politician. That's why the question.
So I'm just saying that as far as the politician is concerned, the last things he wants to do is to interfere into the operational part of a ministries, be it in civil service or even like the royal the police, or for that matters the navies and or the armed forces. The last things want to be interfered in there because it will be endless. You don't have to work anymore. Your job is the jobs of ministers
policy making.
Is the policy making, and of course we have to take grievance and whether this case represent if eventually the opposition politicians they're vindicated, and then it will look very badly on the police. Then the government of the day and the BN government of the day so have cause of concern. Why is that the IGP or the AG you bring cases which is nonsensical and make people angry, and you take a toll on the BN? Yeah. The last thing you want to see that is
we will get a negative backlash
yes.
if the action taken is not true or proven in court.
Okay, so we're saying that this is to answer to this question, it's the police who are in charge of who they charge. Okay, but do you think in this case there has been in your perspective, do you think it is selective prosecution?
I don't think it's a selective prosecution. They have not followed certain laws, so they have to be called in.
Yeah, but what about the other people who have made seditious comments in terms of specifically the ex-judge who made?
Maybe time is not come yet for them to be called to answer.
And it's their time. It's the opposition politicians' time. Okay.
But I would say Misha, the seditious remarks is always very difficult. It's a very big grey area. And where is the boundary? It's very difficult even for judges to make decisions. I would say it's very difficult. What is considered seditious? And therefore, Sedition Act is. I'm a lawyer by profession as usual. So even the Sedition Act is a very controversial piece of legislation, because when you come for persecution, when they make a decision, it's a hard decision whether this has crossed the boundaries. But the boundaries just keep moving, and it's a very grey area. But if it's a clear case and you do not take actions, and the police will have to be blamed. And if then, of course, the ministers in charge probably will ask the IGP what is going on, and then there's a lot of public backlash, and you don't taking action, and we are suffering because of your administrative decision.
Okay, well, we'll let that one play out in the courts. And now, finally, this is not a Facebook question. This is one of the questions we didn't ask earlier, and I'll just ask each of you to provide your view on this. What do you think? What's your view on declaration of assets? Now, we've had Paulo in here talking about it, and he says that's something that he possibly wants to work towards in his time there, and that's a question that many people want to know. Publicly declaration of assets. Dr. Jazlan, if you could start.
Well, my concern about declaration of assets is not a true reflection of the person's integrity, because there are two issues. It's about lifestyle. It's about assets. Right? But I also do not want my assets as an MP to be known to people, because at the end of the day, if I have business interests which are legitimate, I might be persecuted because of that. Now, my point is this: why is opposition pressing this issue, but internally between them they're not united? Penang has voluntarily declared they want to declare assets. Selangor hasn't followed suit. Kelantan hasn't followed suit. So that means DAP is eager, PKR is less eager, PAS is not eager at all. In Kedah, they never even brought up that issue. So there's a big fallacy.
But that's the opposition. Let's talk about
but there's a big fallacy going on there, because they are telling us we should do it, but they themselves are not being truthful to people.
But let's put aside the opposition. We're talking about in the public interest. The public wants to know if their leaders will be declaring their assets publicly, regardless of what the opposition is doing.
Do you want to test the leader's integrity, or do you want to test how much he is worth?
Okay.
These are two different things.
So you say you are uncomfortable. You're not completely comfortable with the idea.
You see, if you put a lot of burden on people to become representatives, you might end up, the good people might actually withdraw or stay away, and you will get people.
Which are declaration of assets? To what extent? You have to limit the scope to what extent of your declaration of assets.
Yeah.
If you're talking about me and my wife, for example, there's only two persons. What about my brothers and sisters? And what about those people who ever reached before the end?
Yeah, they have business interests before.
They may be the offsprings of some conglomerates and tycoon, but his passions in politics, he goes into it. And does he have to declare everything that belongs to the whole family? And what about his wife, who is a career woman and will probably make a lot more money than he does? So,
okay, but what about you?
I'm not married, so that's why I'm saying that the scope has to be very clear. Personally, because to me, for my personal assets, I do my declaring.
Okay.
But for those with family, with wife, with career woman, and with family concern about their safety of the children, so what policies they have, there's some issues. And
I'm a chartered accountant and internal auditor, so I must agree that I think we need some kind of disclosure of assets.
Yes, but
the extent of it need to be studied.
Only when you're holding executive positions.
Okay, because the idea is transparency and bringing more transparency to government.
Only when
I think the government
executive positions where you make decisions.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it would be good for the BN government to show some leadership by having a public disclosure of declaration of asset, but to what extent we have to study.
Declare to public in what sense? It's open. Everybody can have access to know that Dr. Jazlan, how much money you have and all that. And when you make money, you probably make your money way before, because
correct. Yes.
So, and what's wrong to be a millionaire and to enter the
politics?
So it begins to question.
There's still something that need to be.
Because it's a judge of character in terms of they want to know what kind of assets.
Yeah, but do you actually want to tell everything about yourself just because you want to offer yourself for public service?
There must be some.
Well, some may argue that if you enter politics, you have to be willing to let your
in today's day of internet and blogs,
there's
nothing to hide anyway. So to me, it's a moot point.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So we're just going to wrap up here. I don't know if we can just if there's just a final statement in terms of where you see the end going. If you just like to say it in one or two lines, what?
Okay. I'm going to get into trouble because of this. If you want to achieve national reconciliation, if you want BN to become truly a one-party, one Malaysian party, you have to look at you have to start at the schools. You have to basically morph all the schools into one national school system. I'm not saying you do it today, you can do it progressively, but it has to morph into one national school system and not being split into different school systems as it is today, because you will create the next generation of young kids that will be
what do you mean two as in vernacular?
Exclusive, yeah.
Okay.
Merge it into one school system. Lee Kuan Yew did it in Singapore, and that's why Singapore today has a better, a one Singapore kind of outlook. He angered a lot of Chinese educationists at the time, but he did it 30 years ago.
Okay, so that's your end, Mr. Madhu?
Yeah, I think we need to moving forward. We need to be more inclusive. I think when Dato Sri Najib took over in April 2009, he introduced this One Malaysia. But if you look at the voters today, I don't think most of them believe that One Malaysia is actually working. What you preach and what you practice is not aligned. Maybe the Prime Minister is going everywhere introducing One Malaysia product, One Malaysia this, One Malaysia clinic, One Malaysia this, but down the line his ministers, the government servants and all that, are they having the same thinking, same ideology as the Prime Minister in implementing One Malaysia? I feel that I've been a lecturer in University of Malaya. I saw a lot of polarization among the students. The Indians are by themselves, the Chinese mix around themselves, the Malays are by themselves. So if we need to get this togetherness. If you talk about 50 years ago, a Malay guy will be sleeping on an Indian guy's house. They'll be so close.
Okay, 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Basically,
Why can't we? More on Malaysia.
Okay.
Why can't we bring this back? This will actually take BN ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Madhu.
I would say that, Misha, that PM's got it right, visionary, the One Malaysia, to be inclusive. But as I said, inclusiveness must start from home, start from BN component parties. The component parties must be seen to be able to resolve some basic communal issues, so that it will not be seen to be at the expense of other communities. And that's the major point that I have. And I tend to disagree with what Dr. Jazlan said about the vernacular schools. In Malaysia, this is our heritage. And there's a lot of disagreements over the last 50 years. And if we want to close down the vernacular schools, then probably have to close down Sekolah Arab, Sekolah Agama, Sekolah Swasta, Sekolah International, and even private schools.
Merge it into one single syllabus.
But the syllabus by and large the same, but it's only the different language. But I think what the PMS has articulated is how to have better integrations, and therefore the One Malaysia, the inclusiveness, that we not only must appreciate and respect other communities, their way of life, their cultures, their tradition. We must accept we are being different, but this is our heritage, and it is our assets, our strength, and we should look at it that way. But of course, a lot more efforts has to be done to bring down a lot of all this racial barrier, as I said, in the schools. Study of histories, understanding of other communities, starting from media reporting, for example.
But they must be in one school. They can't be in different schools.
Okay. All right, you can continue
That's
this
personal opinion.
That's why we have in BN. We can have different opinions, but we must come for the in the lights of national interest. We must come to a certain consensus, and that's what we have to move on together.
I think Malaysia is unique because we are multiracial. There's a lot of countries which are
all of us
together. We just need to be more unified, work in tandem, improve on certain things. I think, like Senator said, taking out the vernacular school is not going to help. It's a heritage. We don't want to lose our identity.
Mr. Madhu, I have to stop there because we're going to go to a whole new different line. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the program and for discussing all these issues. And thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Okay,
thank you.